Just hearing Matthew call me a poet, just the night's already made for me, so thank you so much. Does everybody have their emotional support water bottle? I'm feeling excited because this is a big, important event. I'm feeling a little nervous because I'm going to talk intimately about my sex life and my heartbreak, and my mom is here. She assured me she's read the book many times already, so she's good to go. So the hope is that I will read cover to cover and then be able to pause briefly and give you a little bit of behind the scenes. If you haven't read the book yet, it's designed to be able to be read cover to cover and go on a journey. I like to call it a heroine's journey, which means you join me at the point of abruption, and then we go to a dark place. So just heads up, the first part is intense. Breathe easy, but know that we are climbing our way into in a much brighter, sweeter space, okay? It's also designed that you can read it in a pick a card, any card style, and then just open up to any page, and you'll get a distilled poem that's essentially a thought on a single subject, okay? So many thanks to the folks that are here that helped to make this book possible, my friends, my supporters, my family, my sweethearts, my first readers. I really appreciate everybody who is here. All right, let's begin. Both and All by Sarah Auna. This book is dedicated to Eleanor and Eddie. I love you more than a middle schooler loves lip gloss, more than a 10-year-old loves skateboarding. Thank you for choosing me. I love you both and all. Section 1, Frey. In the magic moment, when the ginkgos let themselves go, all at once and completely, we were walking. I thought it was fortune. It was foreshadowing. I knew it was over when you came home, nails freshly polished, yellow, the first and second fingers of your right hand shaped into long, sharp talons. In the end, all you could say was, as sure you were that you loved me, you're sure now that you don't. You read our vows and you just don't feel the same way you did. I regret I didn't know your understanding of vows until this moment. When people ask, I'll tell them you were too sick to be married anymore. This is truer than divorce. This is kinder than the truth. It tracks. I feel pride when I say you were my wife, even though the letters E and X precede it. You always were an alchemist. It's like you died, which might have been easier, because then love would still be living. You told the truth that first Christmas when you wrote, I want to do life with you. Simple, beautiful life. You did want to do life with me, but only when it was simple, beautiful. When your devotion left, it was like the hush of the first snow. Cold, audible, undeniable, a sign of the season's change. I wanted to show you the first draft of my vows. Have a baby with you, raise a child, at the very least. Play a few more records. I was still moved by the sound of my name on your lips, even when you used it to tell me to leave. There's nowhere I wouldn't have gone with you, including away. So I did. The thing you dislike the most about me is how much I like you. You couldn't talk me out of loving you, so you talked yourself out of loving me instead. Is everybody breathing? Grief is when my body reminds me of your body. It's feeling once so seen by someone I can no longer bear the sight of. It's too much for one body, so I stir my grief into soups and scones and asked my loved ones to eat it. Side note, sorry about all the sad scones, guys. Thanks for eating my sad soup. Maybe you just composted it directly. That was maybe a good idea. I gave you my favorite poems, songs, flowers, and scents. I lost them all in the divorce. I learned to lick a pussy in the most devotional way. Slow, wide, every stroke of the tongue in uppercase L for love, love, love. She lives in my memory, a myth of extremes, her wonder proportionate to her ability to wound. This is the title poem. I'll pause and tell a little story right before I read it. I had waited a very long time to hear I love you from my ex-wife. And one day we got caught in a snowstorm. And we were standing in the backyard and the locks were frozen shut and we were like fumbling to get in. And it was so snowy. And I just like couldn't take it anymore. I was like, hey, do you love me or are you in love with me? And in the night, in the motion light, and the snow was falling, it was like we were in a spotlight in a snow globe, really. And she said, of course, I love you. I love you both and all. So here's the title poem. Both and all is what you promised when I asked you to be my lover and wife. Both and all is what you desired when I asked you fingers or tongue. Both and all is what you welcomed when I offered you comfort for your pain. Both and all is what you broke when I gave you my heart and my family. Both and all is what you returned when you handed me back my life. Thank you. Fuck you. Both and all.
I was ready in a minute.
We're gonna do some little musical interludes so that we can all breathe a little bit. Some thematic music. Seems appropriate, right? How's everybody doing out there? You want to sing along a little bit? You can.
I know the version of me. If she's perverted like me, will she go down on you in
Theater. I did love to like channel some of that Alanis Morissette, like just say the thing. It's okay if it's a little perverse, it's a little like rough around the edges. So. Okay, section 2, undone. Undone. My first readers were so generous. I had an editor, her name is Alex Wegman. She's from Minnesota, but she lives in California. But before I had Alex, I had my friends, and I had trusted confidants, and I had peers. And one of my first readers said, I just want to know a little bit about your everyday life. Like, that first section was like jab, jab, uppercut, uppercut, jab. She's like, there had to be some like, you know, boring days. I want to know more about your home, about your the everydayness of your life. And so that's where this the beginning of this next section was inspired by. The last time. I carry myself across the threshold of our front door. I know this will be the last time I understand this place as home. Fingers brush across the couch where we fit, just so. Plus a kid, or 2, or 3. Thumb the titles in our record bin. I'll only be taking the ones that belong to my dad. Put on one more kettle and look at all the mugs. Pack the ones with the right balance of sentimentality, hand, and mouthfeel. Shuffle past the dog hair, some of which will make the move. Avoiding the creaky floorboards. It's still mine, this empty house, but my body behaves like she doesn't want me. My body behaves like she doesn't want anyone to know I'm here. glance around our bedroom. I can tell the time of day by the shadow play and the neighborhood sounds. My eyes land on a bookshelf, and I begin to slide covers, backs, and bindings away from one another. Unmingling our books is like ripping flesh from bone. I'm sorry, I whisper to the hand-inscribed titles that I'll be leaving behind. The last thing I do before I go is lay down in our bed and take a photo of myself, visibly bruised, a place of worship, no more. Now I know why you never put up pictures of loved ones in your home. How many people did we joyfully tell our love story to? That's how many hearts you've broken. You told me to stay in my lane so you could make a quick exit. The cost of entry to your sanctuary was silence. I was only invited if I promised to stay small and leave my needs at the door. I didn't leave you. You insisted we, stop showing up at our life. That poem looks a lot better on the page than it's read out loud, okay? Page 34, note it. You refused to say wasted time as a promise to a dying friend. We honored him and you by refusing to say it too. Your words kept your promise, but your body didn't. It's the same way you kept your vows. What a thing that you were contemplating my eviction while I was contemplating my cremation. As long as my ashes are scattered in our flower garden, I said. You will be my peony love. Or peony if you're that kind of person. You will be my peony love, big, alluring, bountiful, and fleeting. Dead overnight in the grandest gesture of surrender. You can control me or love me. Pick one. You can control yourself or love yourself. Pick one. It's easier to control a narrative than it is to control a person. You chose control over love, fixing over feeling. Unaccountable. There's a problem, but you've wrapped it in a "you're the problem" package. When you're most comfortable suffering and your best in chaos, you will create the conditions needed to flourish. Having matching tattoos is irrelevant. You left a much more permanent mark. Which one do you guys think? It's unbearable that the change of address stickers are waiting for me in my mailbox for an entire year. A daily reminder of ruin. You can keep the pictures of me you saved in your hidden album. You took all of me anyhow. Wedding day. The truth is, our wedding day is still one of the best days of my entire life. We carried dahlias, carrot fronds, and ginkgos grown at home. When we planted them, we thought we were growing flowers. We were actually growing bouquets. I wore the lace shawl you bought for me on our 5th date because you already knew, even then. Your dress, hand-painted in strokes of pink and green and ochre. You serenaded me with songs we loved, and I you with words that mattered. Even now, my vows to you and the children are some of the best words I've ever written. We recited them so tenderly, including a secret vow you whispered into my ear alone. It was a ceremony in the round, and we were encased by our loved ones, who were holding their hearts in their hands and their breath, because the wedding came as quickly as one season of flowers. My goodness, what a peak season it was. There's wedding guests in the audience, you guys. Thanks for sticking with me. Okay, we all have to take a preemptive breath for this next one. Thanks. The vows you actually kept. This feels like the angriest poem in the book. I reimagined our actual vows to more accurately reflect what was most consistently kept as a promise in the marriage. So, yeah, hold on to your hats. The vows you actually kept. Today, you are setting your intention towards one another. But over time, you will distance yourself by rejecting love and refusing to trust. Yes, that's right. Each of us is free to change and grow, and you promise to gaslight your wife if this growth or this change interferes with your control of the family. Can you? I can. In daily life, you will twist needs, words, and concerns to paint a picture that will not allow anyone to be fully seen, especially yourself. Will you? I will. In moments you feel vulnerable or less than, you will build an emotional vault so thick there will be no light or community allowed in. No one will be able to see you in this darkness. Is this true? It is. When conflict arises, you will autopilot through it, using your social work skills you acquired in college. Will you? I will. When you're suffering, you will minimize it. When you see that the other is suffering, you will acknowledge it as long as it doesn't require an apology from you. Can you? I can. You will remember that each person is doing the best they can with what they have, and you will use this as an excuse to shirk responsibility over and over and over again. Is this true? It's true. Your relationship is adjacent to the single family home you've built for you and your son. It's a place you can choose to visit when things are pleasant or if it looks like you could be a hero. Is this right? That's right. You want to be married, but you've been ignoring so many hurts for so long, it will only be possible for a short time. You have decided the person standing in front of you is the best person for you, as long as she is obedient and ignores her intuition. Yes? Sure thing. Repeat after me. I take you to be something other than yourself. I will love some select parts of you, trusting no others. I will question your integrity and feel disgusted by your love for me. I choose none other than Sarah to be my wife. For now. Whew. Thanks for the snaps. Apologies to the folks who had to read the first couple drafts of that poem.
It was longer.
Much longer. Thicker, if you will. I wanted to do the work of changing. You wanted to do the work of staying the same. Okay, this is one of my favorite poems coming up, and my dear friend Sarah is in the audience, and she is the one that helped me discover this poem. I was standing in the street, a grate at my feet, full of leaves and debris and brokenheartedness. My friend asked if she could pray for me, and I felt myself hollow at the deep vulnerability of accepting such a gift. I expected her to ask for reunion, resolution, reconciliation. Break it all open. She said, break it all open. In doing so, she raised the volume on a bell I had already heard ringing. Undeniable truth flooded my heart, body. It was already so. Thanks, Sarah. There's nothing in my new space that reminds me of you. I wouldn't allow it. Except one drop of blood, your blood, left on a set of sheets we never fucked on. These are the 2 reasons I allowed them to come along at all.
Come back now, even if you call.
Take some breaths, okay, with me.
You might be angry now, of course you are.
How you doing, Mama?
Scared to.
Do you want a Kleenex? Matthew's our concierge for the night, our Kleenex concierge. Okay, the good news is that much like the poem about Sarah and with Sarah kind of felt, this is the tipping point, right? This feels like the tipping point. So the next section, through line. It's important to know how uninterested some people are in relief. How much someone is loved is no match for how unsafe they feel in their body. If I want to stop bleeding, I need to stop throwing myself against your barricades. If I want to be seen and heard, I need to stop showing up at your fortress. Essentials for leaving a marriage. Okay, before I read this one. My friend Kim, she drove me to the house because it was like time to grab a few last things, but it was like a get in and get out, kind of keep your head low situation. And I grabbed the essentials, which you're gonna find out about, and I was holding them in my lap. I'm like, got back in her car in the front seat. I'm like crying, ugly cry. And she looks at my lap and she goes, I want you to take a picture of these things you've grabbed. Because it's not funny now, but it will be funny someday. Sure enough. Essentials for leaving a marriage. A kettle for coffee or tea or any kind of witch's brew. It's a traveling cauldron. Cotton everything, because you'll need to breathe on all levels. Thigh rescue lotion. Lord knows there's already enough friction. Tax documents, because finances are about to get as thick as those thighs, girl. Any of the following books, read them or clutch them. Untamed by Glennon Doyle. When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. And The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And a vibrator for when feeling returns. Originally this poem was one line, and so I'm just gonna read it as that tonight, but in the book it's designed on repeat. How do I care without carrying? I mistook one of my greatest teachers for one of my greatest loves. One understanding of trauma is too much, too fast, too soon. If this is true, then my love is yours, and you're leaving mine. It's not that I couldn't handle it. It's that I handled it all. Sometimes it feels safe to lay on my back again, heart open, belly soft, thighs turned out. Other times I'm forced to curl it all in, my whole body fist tight, protecting myself against the memory of the fight to be loved. I refuse to have a fenced-off heart, barbed with crystallized spikes of pain. So when I drive past our old house, I open my hand and press my palm to the window, press my palm to the pain. I said nothing but love, love, love to all the people, all the ghosts still living there, the ghosts still riding their bikes around the block and sledding down the hill in winter, playing baseball in the diamond and pushing through the soil as sedum. All the ghosts still waiting, untouched, at the front door of the house you refused to call ours. I poured it all out, and you held it all in, and because of our dispositions, the space between us grew too great. I'm stuck between wishing I had more time with you and knowing that loving you more would have made it worse. May I use this pain to propel me towards my purpose. May I allow this grief to burden me so heavily I sink down, down, down to the deepest of dark where the pearl is waiting. We knew how to be in love. We didn't know how to be in life. I hold a high vision for you. It's what I've done all along, much higher than you held for yourself, much higher than you held for me. I accept the nature of endings and have found some gutting and grace in the letting go. I'll do my best to see this time through with ceremony. Even if you couldn't give it to me, there is healing in a good bye. How's everybody hanging in there? Doing all right? Okay, great. It's a really good breakup playlist if anybody needs it after the show. Happy to share. Oh, all right. Mend, mend. I am tenderized by the lesson of grief, intimate with the act of self-betrayal, fortified with the knowledge that I will try to never do that to myself again. Each new interaction an invitation to practice wisdom, hard won. All the fated encounters, the green lights, the magnetism, they were designed to guide me towards you so that I could learn what I needed to learn. It was still fated, just not the outcome I expected. I am a career rescuer. Comfort is my currency, and I will pay and pay. Care is my intention, but depletion, the outcome, oftentimes, for all. I'm going to take this capacity for attunement and apply it to my own subtle body. The way I hold my mouth, sense a soft spot in my belly, and cry with every orgasm. I will be my own clues, my own Nancy Drew. This next poem was suggested very late in the writing process, well after the manuscript kind of felt whole, and my sweetheart very bravely suggested over beers one night that I should write an apology letter to the children. Ooh, she was bold and she was right. Okay, so, thank you, love. For the kids. Oh, I should also say that same day we went home because the beers and took a nap because of the beers. And in the twilight of the sleep, the poem came. It did. It came. I kneel down. This is the right shape for the moment. I'm sorry I was blinded by my own unmet needs and couldn't see your little hands in the air. In one, a red flag, and in the other, a white. I'm sorry I let reckless enthusiasm take the wheel and drive all three of us to a destination with no vacancy. I'm sorry I used the slack from your resilience, the false notion of childhood flexibility, to make room for decisions that would leave us brittle and frayed. Does it feel safe to hand me your flags? I'll learn to stitch them up into a quilt that will wrap us up. 3. Graciously you do. I take your little palms in mine and press them to my cheek. Pink. I try to explain the only training for motherhood is on the job. A role which asks me to cross my own lines in order to know where the lines even are. I try to explain the unspoken vow of motherhood. The unspoken vow of motherhood, which is to try. To find out what I need to find out about my own joy and sorrow and use it to fortify myself and my relationship to everyone around me. I try. This is for the codependents in the room. I love you, I see you. I am you. Your help is not always needed, but your here-ness is. Fix-it energy in you implies brokenness in others. Try doing nothing and doing it well. Allow. They will find their way. There is worth in your presence alone. Beloved, keep some of that light for you. Call it back into your bones and cure it into a concentrated honey that nourishes you first and is offered only upon invitation. When they ask and you allow, a sweetly secured bond will form, a hexagonal home for love to live in. Love yourself. The narrow place. I hope people give birth. That's been my profession and purpose and career for many, many years, 10 now. And when I interview people about their experiences, they will oftentimes use the exact same imagery, and not the traditional American imagery of pain and suffering, but of a thin place, a narrow place, a veiled place. And so much of my ability to get through this divorce and write this book was drawing on the courage and the strength of folks that have allowed me to witness their birth. And I called upon them for this poem, The Narrow Place. The reverberation of our own voices bounce against the walls of the narrow place. Finding their way back to us, we are saying what we need to hear. Here, there's only room enough for words, sounds that float on air and find their way to our hearts by way of our ears. Here, there's not enough space to hold on to what was and what will be at the same time. Here, we've gone so far in, where is it out, that we must dissolve ourselves in order to pass. Here, such vulnerability demands we allow ourselves to be formed to the specifications of the narrow place, so that we may expand tender and new, having endured telling the truth on ourselves. We no longer cover one another. We no longer cover one another. But your grandmother still watches over me. Her presence is a light-spirited hummingbird. And my grandmother still watches over you. Her ashes feed the regal delphinium, which nods encouragingly in your garden. On the mornings I shower, and it's just me, and whatever song my subconscious has sent me, just me, and the relationship dynamic I'm thoughtfully trying to make sense of, just me, and the luminous soap bubbles playing across my breasts in the 7-Eleven light, just me, and my sweetly scented hair and neck. On those mornings, I am the woman of my dreams. My big life impact plan. Say I love you as often as possible to as many people as possible, myself included. Hey guys, I love ya.
Love you, Sarah.
I wrote myself a love note on my water bottle before I came down here. I'll hold on to that Post-it. My entire self-concept changed when I stopped seeing signs as warnings and began to understand them as confirmations. When I started saying thank you, where I used to say sorry. When I started to speak to myself in the affirmative. I have love. I give love. I am love. Lessons learned while alone. I like to take care of other people's troubles so I don't have to face my own. The internet can teach me how to whistle loudly. It will surprise and delight me so sincerely I will tip over with laughter and tears. Those 3 guitar chords that I taught myself in college, they'll always be in my fingers. Books are like pizzas. Some are worth finishing more than others. Speaking of finishing, multiple orgasms are a thing. I want other people to feel better so I can feel better, actually. Nothing I ever thrift online will fit, and I'm gonna have some big feelings about this. So I learn about self-regulation, and I find a tailor. Gardens I have lost will haunt me, just as much as the lovers. So I will thumb through the seed library I have lovingly curated in a past life, and I will make sense of what can be planted in this season's soil, knowing no matter how deeply I love their flowers, some seeds will need to stay in storage a while longer. I want my writing and my motherhood, my love and my life to be answers to beautiful questions. We're home. We are home. There is sanctuary here for our delicate, honeyed hearts, whose nectar was made by the bees and the dogwood trees, on a hill high enough for the sun's light to shine from sunset to sunrise and back again. I listened to our love song tonight, all the way through. It found me, totally, disarmed, in the bathtub, drinking a beer and sending pictures of my soft shoulder to my new lover. Brain said, nope, nope, nope. Heart said, let's see where this goes. Tears fell, and I waited for the seizure of my middle body, but I stayed soft, listening through a light veil of nostalgia, and it hurt, but not enough for me to harden. I've got a very funny story about this poem. That middle part, brain said, nope, nope, nope. Heart said, let's see where this goes. Just before that, I'm in the bathtub, right? And I'm sending pictures of my soft shoulder. My mom read this, she goes, who is Brian? Why did Brian say nope? like, I need to check for some typos. Because if Brian is like, no, girl, who's Brian? Get out of here, Brian. Yeah. Thanks, Mama. All right, one more in this section. Sorrow. Sorrow is your whole self, groundless and consumed, uncontrolled, retching into a basket of clean laundry. I thought I had immunity. I thought I'd be the only person time could not heal. But many months later, I opened up Mary Oliver again to see if she uses periods at the end of her sentences. She does. Thumbed immediately to the poem The Uses of Sorrow. And she told me that someone she loved once had given her a box full of darkness, and that this too was a gift.
You see Barbie.
I'm trying to tell you something about my life.
Let's just sing a little bit and I'll read you the last section, huh?
Between black and white. And the best thing you've ever done for me is to help me take my life as seriously. It's only life after all. Yeah.
Let's get through the first chorus.
Well, darkness has a hunger that's insatiable. And lightness has a call that's hard to hear. And I wrap my fear around it like a blanket. I sail my ship of safety till I sank it. I'm crawling on your shores. And I went to the doctor. I went to the mountains. I looked to the children. I drank from the fountains. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line.
Sing this last part.
Unless I see our souls more sensitive, closer I am to find. Yeah, closer I am to find. Yeah. And I went to see the doctor.
Thanks, DJ. This last section's about the DJ. Offer. Ecstasy. Ecstasy is your whole self, sensual and authentic, held sweetly by safety. I thought I had it all figured out, who I was and what I desired, but it belonged to someone else, their dreams, their needs, their standards. It wasn't until the dating app asked me, "Do you prefer men or women?" that I was baptized by my own knowing. Ecstasy. She was waiting for me. And when I came in, I came out. And came, and came, and came. I met a woman with my grandmother's lucky birthday. She reminded me, everyone I meet is my destiny. About a year after writing this poem, the woman with my grandmother's lucky birthday called my mom and said, "Happy birthday to Barb, it's my birthday too." And my mom said, "My mom's birthday was yesterday." So I really romanticized this particular part of the meeting with each other. We have a good laugh about it now.
It's close enough.
Yeah. We are good moms, we whisper over wet lips with wise, wide tongues. I wake with sticky fingers every morning since I met you. I want to take long, cool gulps from the fountain of your mouth. It hums one note, 2 octaves, ecstasy and sorrow, early and late, freedom and foundation. Oranges come in sections, so you can have a bite for yourself and a bite for your lover, and a bite to hold up to the golden afternoon sun, and a bite to touch to her nipple, and a bite too, and a bite too, and a bite too. This is the saucy part of the book, y'all.
You're welcome.
It's not always like this, but some days you can have it all. Your heart broken and mended 3 times over by justice and music and sex. Your calling is to reach for the moment when it comes. Hold it loosely with your sacred, unclenched palms and pray the one and ever only 3-part prayer. Yes, welcome. Thank you. Good sex, like music, pulls something out of your bones. It rocks your hips, unsolicited, while you brush your teeth. It compels you to reach for the towel she dried her face on last night, so you can press it to your mouth this morning. It's the kind of thing you'll carry in your body for always, the type of memory that might get you all the way home from Wyoming. I ask, want to fall in love with me together? Want to fall in love with you together? You respond, everything is wanted for you and nothing is asked. So we hold one another and ourselves long and close, enough that the pattern of my bra leaves an impression of lace across the skin of your beautiful breast. Make love in the afternoon once in a while, and take in the way the light touches your lover's face and the space between your thighs. Drink in the details usually covered by night. Let me lick the sweat from the deep curve which runs parallel to your spine. I want to dip my fingers into that sweet space that falls at the intersection of your wide heart and deep hips. The soft skin of your inner wrist, the tone of your strong legs, the subtle lift of your round nose. May my lips be so lucky to know well a body like yours. You put words to the unknown most sensations of my heart, the same way the tall grasses show us the shape of the wind. I want to wet my fingers till my cupped palm fills and runs down both sides of my wrist. I want you to moan into my mouth while you hold me, laugh so hard our bellies clap. Little high fives. I want you to press your cheek against my back so that when you breathe, a circle of condensation forms. I want you to snore into my hair while we're sleeping so it wakes me up and I can know again we're in one another's arms. Your radiance, goodwill, and heart walk into the room before you do. A presence that precedes you by a few feet on all sides. You're the kind of woman who makes me want to take my rings off, turn my ringer off, take my clothes off, but mostly my armor. You, an exuberant golden honey that washes over me right down to the center of my body. This will end, as all things do. So we have made a commitment to care for the end as much as the beginning. With a deep conversation, a joint, maybe some homemade applesauce, and complete respect for one another's crumpled, hopeful hearts. Be they the hearts that are beating in our smooth tan chests, or the hearts that will beat under wrinkled parchment skin. I am the lover of mothers. I am the lover of mothers. I hold their bodies, their hands, their hopes. I am the lover of the lovers of mothers, of moms and vobs, of abbas and aunties and grandmas and nanas and omas. I am the lover of creation bodies and the parents who love that creation into being. I hold their hips and their hair and their hurts. I am the lover of mothers. My lover is a mother. I am a mother. We hold one another. We hold, release. I don't know much about motherhood outside of what my children teach me. But I do know when your child looks at you in the eye at 2 a.m. and says, "You're a good one." You take that gift and let it fill your whole past, your whole present, and your whole future. To all the trees I've loved. A very important person in the process of this book is my friend Laura Johnson. And we had one conversation and she was like, this might sound silly, but they have a few trees I really love at the Minnesota Arboretum. And I was like, boy, we are in. I was like, I have a whole poem about that. And then I was like, want to read my book? Nobody else has read it yet. And she said, yes, guys. She said, yes. Thank you, Laura Johnson. To all the trees I've loved. Jolene, an exuberant magenta crabapple whose beauty was beyond compare. The city ash could never. The ginkgo tree on State Street, whose roots ran deep and down, remaining true since the time of dinosaurs. I tattooed one of your fallen fans and now carry you on the curve of my shoulder everywhere I go. The white pine, waving to me from the side of Highway 35. Hi, friend. Bye, friend. Your boughs said to me as I commuted from the Northland. The single birch, who grew directly towards the sun, unobstructed. Your companions were cleared so that the sunrisers could have an unobstructed sightline. You became the view. A redbud tree, given to me as a gift. Lugged, tugged, drug, dug, and planted days before this gardener was fired. My friends tell me you didn't survive. I, however, did. To the Texas cypress, who dappled my ecstasy with shade and shelter, a witness to bliss and bliss herself. To the elder oaks who hold our home, you wrap your branches around this nest, so established are you, that it's clear we are on your land and we are in your arms. One more. This is also a poem that just came to me. And I like to say that I couldn't not write this book. More so even that I was like a medium or a catalyst for what needed to be said. So while there's lots of intimate details in it, it definitely chose me. A field guide for my daughter. My mother stayed the night last night. I told her I wrote a book. Her attentiveness and sacrifice are in it. Her worry is in there too. The way she taught me to ask a question instead of stating a need. My eyes, ears, and heart always attuned to someone outside of myself. The way she taught me how to sit with the brokenhearted is the way I sit with myself now. Thank you, Mom. My grandmother visited me at sunset yesterday. I told her I wrote a book. Her curiosity and flirtation are in it. Her secret keeping is in there too. The way she taught me to put my face on and never allow others to see my sores. The way she taught me to check in on my people is the way I check in with myself now. Thank you, Grandma. My great-grandmother met me in a dream the other night. I told her I wrote a book. The way she was abandoned by her family and nicknamed Bye, B-Y-E, is in it. Her commitment to that family, even in chaos, is in there too. The way she birthed the most powerful woman, my grandmother, and lost her life doing so, is the way I birth myself now. Thank you, great-grandmother. My great-great-auntie hovers above the waters of my life. I told her I wrote a book. She raised Bai, and then raised Bai's baby when Bai died only 10 days into motherhood. The way my auntie whispered devotion into my DNA is in it. The way she whispered fear and hypervigilance is in there too. How she stepped into the fold of other people's families so that generations could unfurl is my purpose now. Thank you, great-great-auntie. My daughter sat with me on the couch today. I told her I wrote a book. A field guide to my heart and mannerisms, my hurt and my healing. The way I rescue people from themselves is in it. The way I destroy myself doing it is in there too. How I am the first in 4 generations of women who wasn't raised by a motherless mother. And how I, like them, choose love again and again and again across the ages. It's the inheritance I aim to leave her with, an artifact handed from my heart to hers. The end. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is truly a dream come true. I appreciate you. After all that, does anybody need a cigarette or a drink? Or have a question? If you have a question about the process of writing the book, or a behind the scenes moment, or a revelation from your own life or experience, happy to hear and share with that.
I'll ask a question. I imagine that you've written for a while, maybe a long time. So what made you decide to put this body of work out into the world?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I have been a writer my whole life in the way that I would write for school newspapers, and I was a journalist for a while, and I kept journals very prolifically. I write notes in my journals that's like, "Dear children, if you read this part, please don't take it personal." I have this dream of people thumbing through my journals someday when I'm long gone. But I just had a very explicit sense that I was gonna write a book as a result of the abruption of the divorce. And so it was more like it chose me than I chose to publish it. But the origin of the book itself was harvested or farmed from 50 handwritten letters that I wrote in the first 24 hours after finding out that the divorce was gonna happen. And I didn't send any of them except one. I kept them, and then I went through the process of doing life, barfing in the basket of clean laundry, moving into my mom and dad's house, moving out of my mom and dad's house, finding the new place, on and on and on. And then once we found ourselves with our feet back underneath us, I went back and I looked at the letters and I thought, there's some real shit in here. But there's also some really great stuff that other folks might be interested in transmuting and hearing about. And so that's how the process happened to me, through me, with me. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I should say, once I decided from the letters, oh yeah, there's good stuff here, that also instigated another process of creativity. And so I would just be driving in my car and I would just be like, hey Siri, text myself, and then I'd blah, 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 out a poem. And then I'd go back. Hey Siri, she's listening. She is on it. I've trained her very well. So I should actually have a little dedication to Siri in this book too, because she was a very delightful assistant. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, hi Laura.
Hi. So I want to applaud you for putting something that is so personal out into the world. What I am curious to hear about is, obviously putting something like this out into the world, the person who's on the other side of it, that's not Rachel. Do they know about this?
Yeah.
And how informed, knowing that they might know or
Yeah.
would know,
Mhm.
how did that shape what you wrote? And if you would just touch on that.
Yeah, it's such a good question. Well, my high school friends are here. Have you guys sent copies? It's my thought that perhaps they know, and perhaps they've read, but also from the poems you understand the kind of steadfastness of this individual, and I feel like they're the kind of person that could have a whole ass book written about them and choose not to read it. So that is my sense, perhaps. So when I was writing the book, it was like the worst case scenario that I would write some sad ass lesbian breakup book, like how self-indulgent. And so I really wanted to use the process as a means of self-discovery and responsibility, and name all those things too. And so then I just kind of weighed, like, if I say, a vulnerable or a revealing thing, can I balance that or back that up with my own sense of responsibility taking? And so that's what I stuck with. And then I also just chose to leave some really intimate details out of all of it, because I did want to be protective to myself and herself, and then this third thing that we created together, which was our marriage and our divorce. Thanks, Laura. Anything else?
What are you channeling these days?
What am I channeling these days? That's so cute. It still happens that a poem will find me. Just a couple nights ago, I did the Hey Siri situation, Hey Siri thing. So I think that I'm not trying explicitly for anything, but I am continuing therapy and journaling and seeing if something reveals itself. And I try not to get too serious about it. So if I just have a little ditty or a little line or a one-liner or an interesting thought, I write it down or I text myself, and maybe it'll be something someday and maybe it won't. But that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah, thanks.
Do you think you'll ever write something with a theme in mind? Like, would you ever get an idea and then be like, okay, yeah, I'll work
Interesting.
on that?
I've done lots of iterations of something like that in my life. Like, I studied history in college and loved the idea of a single subject and then learning everything about World War II memorials and everything. So I have that skill set and I am interested in that. It could be. Maybe more of a compilation though. I think I do like the idea of channeling and distributing and collecting other people's experiences too, and looking for the tie that binds them all. Mm-hmm. Let's just do one more. There's one more question.
Do you mind sharing how you and Rachel met?
Oh, I don't mind how Rachel and I met. So right after the COVID lockdown lifted, but lightly, where you could go into the coffee shop one person at a time and then shout across, "I'd like a iced Kingfield, please." And we were 6 feet apart. I do what I always do at coffee shops, and I look at the events table and I look at the flyers and I want to know who's got the little pull tab flyer. You know what I'm talking about. Except it was just covered in dust because nobody had been in the coffee shop for a long ass time. And I saw this little flyer after the baby bump, and there was these two babes in flower dresses and bright lipstick. And I had been helping people give birth for years and years at that point, and I was like, these are my people. That was my first thought. And then also, why don't I know them yet? And so then I went through the process of trying to get in touch with them, which was a clunky time of life for all of us. Nobody's responding to their emails. Do I even own that phone number anymore? Who knows what's even happening? And it took a long time. So I didn't actually interface with Rachel in person until I saw her after the separation and divorce. at the Minnesota State Fair. And she was adorably dressed in a rain poncho and a COVID-19 mask. And under all that, I was like, ah, my people. That's the girl and her bestie from after the baby bump poster. So I went up to her and I said, hey, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. You're Rachel Kurtz. And I didn't know at this point that people say that to her all the time because she is a famous singer lady. This was the least original opening line I could ever have. And the good thing is I wasn't trying to have an opening line, so it was good that I kind of faded into the background. She messaged me the next day and said, hey, just in case you come down with symptoms, it turns out I have COVID. We just talked for a little bit, but just in case. And that kind of opened up a line of communication for us, like checking in, how you doing, how you feeling. That was in August. Many months go by, and I'm not ready to date, do anything, build partnerships, build business relations, nothing, because I am a hurting unit. I'm still like looking through the letters at this point. There's no book. And we finally meet on New Year's Eve for what I thought was this business meeting I've been waiting for since back in the coffee shop shouting days. And she thought it could be a date, so she came dressed to impress.
And I did.
And she impressed, as it turns out. And she impressed. We had a 6-hour business meet and greet that involved a lot of like great sparks, and we were both totally disarmed and both a bit heartbroken at the time, and just kind of like saying all there is to say. Like, we weren't trying to impress or say the right thing or anything. We were very explicit and vulnerable and playful, and had lots of points of connection. And that night I got called away to a birth, and so I had to like cut things short. Then, during that 6-hour chat, this is the last little bit of the story. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Is it Siri?
That's not me. Oh, it's me. It's the Beebs.
The Beebs calling.
Oh, it's because you said sorry.
Oh. The robots are listening. During that 6-hour pseudo date business meeting situation, Rachel had asked have you listened to any of my music? And I was like, no, because I had Googled her, I didn't come prepared. And she started telling the story about this song she's written called Lioness. When she said Lioness, an antenna kind of peeked up for me. I thought, I know this song. Not sure how I know this song. So then I went home that night after being called to the birth, looked up the song Lioness and saw the album cover, and I thought, oh my God. A couple years prior to that, I had been at one of the most profoundly powerful births of my entire career, and it was a nurse, it was a chaplain who chose to give birth outside of the hospital, even though her mother and her sister were both labor and delivery nurses, and her whole family was upside down about her giving birth outside of the hospital, and they were very afraid. And so she wanted to combat some of this fear. And when she gave birth, she just looked like the most gorgeous lioness. And I told her that when she gave birth, she looked like the most gorgeous lioness. Her hair came down. She had these in birth centers, you use something for some traction, and they have these silk sheets that they tie to the ceiling, and you can pull down on. She was biting them. And she gave birth to a 10-pound baby outside of that hospital, just like the animal she is. Standing, right. And so I told her, you were a lioness in that moment. She said, oh my God, Sarah, did I tell you the song I listened to every day of my pregnancy to combat my family's fear? Lioness by Rachel Kurtz. So that night I was like, okay, we got something on our hands here.
My grandmother's lucky birthday.
My grandmother's lucky birthday. So that's how we met. It's a good story. Thanks for asking. One of my faves. All right. I think with that, we'll wrap it up. If anybody would like to buy a book, they are for sale. I'll be signing copies if you want to buy one or if you've brought one. Yes? Okay. Thank you.